Welcome back, everyone, to the Disaster Tough podcast, where we share insights into the big plays and right calls of leadership. We dive deep into the stories, lessons learned, and ideas that will help you in the field. Let's go. Welcome back, everybody, to the Disaster Tough podcast. I randomly clicked live for LinkedIn. I think it's going to our Readiness Lab page. I don't know what's going to happen. We did this a while ago, but I was like, hey, no planning. I just got back from another disaster and thought it'd be fun just to kind of go live and see what happens, see if anybody tunes in. And if not, I still got to record the podcast. So let's get into it. But with that being said, it's May 7th, my birthday month. You're welcome, planet Earth, for being born. Let's see. I wrote down comments just to myself, and thought it'd be cool to just kind of go through them, see what's happening in the world, and if anybody tunes in, like I said, you can comment, you can do all that fun stuff. But so, for the sake of recording the DTP podcast, I want to start with reaching out to our community via LinkedIn. I saw a ton of posts over the course of several months of people losing their jobs, talking about the passion that they had for EM, didn't know what they were going to do, a lot of the Doge stuff happening. And I think not even Doge, I think an excuse to kind of get things moved around. And with that, what I really mean is, when you have a group that everyone's focusing on of saying, hey, let's streamline as much as possible, let's cut as much as possible, let's see where the chips fall. I think other people take an opportunity there to say, well, I kind of wanted to do this stuff. And I really hope that wasn't happening in FEMA. But for what it is, there's a lot of people that I knew that had reached out to me personally and said, hey, I was basically forced out of the position, or I got to do it early retirement or otherwise. And I was really thinking about, what can I do for the field? I can't help out 20,000 people looking for a job, obviously. And I do think that there's a miscalculation that everybody thinks that, like, contractors, there was literally the phrase I saw, well, contractors will gobble you up. For what? If the grants are going away and if things are changing, then, like, where does that go to? Now, hopefully the funds are still there, but they get redistributed. And so there's still ways to access it and help out states and help out local communities on the public safety stuff. But EM is so much bigger than public safety and has been. And yet the community as a whole hasn't embraced that. And I think that has held us back in kind of a big way. Let's see. With that, it came to my attention that there might be an opportunity for us to find wins for some people. And the thought process there, I'm looking this up while I'm doing it, is if someone's been given a severance package, specifically a severance package, then we might be able to bridge the gap in time for them trying to find a job and for the severance still kicking in. So there was that thought process, but not everybody's been given a severance package, and there's work to do if we can find work. And so it's like, okay, let's put some feelers out there and just say, hey, if we can help you out, we'd like to help you out, and try to find a solution. I am so tired of, oh man, I was going to use a kind of a mean term there. I recognize that people want to complain, and venting is a way to cope, and we all need to vent every once in a while. But if you're not offering solutions as an organization who's like trying to pretend that you're helping out the field, or you really think you're helping out the field because you're super passionate, but you're not actually providing any real solutions, then it makes me wonder about the validity of what you can offer. And anyways, taking all that combined, I said, okay, what are the solutions? What can we actually do as a small organization to get some people work? I think we've had like a ton of responses at this point. So much so that we ended up creating a Google form, and I just asked people a ton of basic questions so I could direct different people in my team to give them a call in order to, you know, feel valid, right? Like again, that validity thing. Um, but if you're listening to the podcast or you're tuning into the stream, which I doubt anybody is, it's like a random, it's what, noon on a Wednesday. Um, if you are desperate about finding a job and you need help and you are looking for your team, um, or at least your crowd, you're looking for maybe even contract work or otherwise, uh, reach out to me or somebody else with my team. We'll send you that link, fill it out, and we'll give you a call. We will call every single person who fills out that form, and every legitimate person. If a bot gets in there, we're not going to call you, but you know what I mean. We want to help out the field. We care about solutions. That's a solution I can do. I'm wondering why other people who are in similar positions haven't offered that as well. Hopefully, they're not waiting for people to get that desperation doesn't become dire, so they feel like they can use them. That would be disgusting to me. Though I think um, that tactic may happen here pretty soon with some of the other companies that we've seen out there who don't have as much ethics. Cough, cough. That one that was successfully sued for stealing money from survivors. Mmm, that water was delicious. Okay. Um, So again, if you're looking for a job and you're in emergency management or adjacent, we do a bunch of other stuff with emergency services. Then please reach out to us. The other thing that I wanted to call out pretty quick was um, TRL, the Readiness Lab. The Readiness Lab sales on for shirts and other merchandise like hats, mugs, the whole deal. Um, they have been skyrocketing lately, especially the ones that have like the next level emergency management logo on there. The one that looks like quotes that's also kind of a hazard symbol. The one that we call next level EM. It's been pretty cool, and I've been trying to figure out like why. Uh, and I think there's a couple of reasons. Um, but I would love to know from you if you've been one of those who have recently gotten on board and were like, I want to show off this, this EM logo that we have identified as, and this branding standard that you've incorporated into your EM wear. I would love to know it. Like, especially when we get the EOC shirts that have like planning, operations, whatever, and it has that next level EM logo on it. It's like it makes me feel pretty cool. Like people are getting on board. They don't want to wear the vest anymore. I've had to wear the vest for the last 3 months, but I was actually in the field with demo crews as they're doing hazmat recovery, so that made sense, right? Safety vest. But in an EOC, like hopefully your highlighted safety vest, protects you. It's like we don't use it for that. We use it for labels. It's like really you're changing jobs that much? I don't see people changing jobs that much. But what I do see is people getting really good at a role and walking into that role. And it's cool to see people kind of take on that like t-shirt mentality or even polos. I mean, polos work well too, but I always sweated so much in EOC because I was running around and t-shirts for the win. Obviously, I'm a t-shirt guy. But either way, thank you for everybody who has been going to the Readiness Lab shop on our website and supporting what we're trying to do. We're trying to help out the field and do some really cool stuff with it. Um, one of the possible conclusions, and I'm looking at my notes here, is I had this question. It was like, are we the pirates, like the rebels of EM at this point? Because uh it's quickly diverging, and I'm seeing other people who the pretenders. I shouldn't say that. The people who try to be like us, they've started using the same vernacular as us, which I think is really fascinating. Um, Probably good for the field, to be honest. But We thoroughly believe that emergency management is the strategic side of a lot of tactical operations, i.e., first responders. Emergency managers are first responders. We do the strategic stuff. Other people do the tactical stuff, but they're all first responders. I loathe, like, what is that from, like, The Grinch? I loathe when someone's like, I'm not a first responder, I'm a second responder. It's like, oh, please, like, oh, and then they get really passionate. We are not first responders. It's like, cool, you're telling people that as an emergency manager, you don't really need to manage an emergency. Oh, cool. So, like, why are you there? So I don't know. People are jumping on board with the way that we're thinking, and honestly, it goes back to our true grassroots, which, by the way, it's not technically civil defense. Civil defense is unarmed, but EM was created because of a couple big disasters that happened in the 70s, and it's supposed to save first responders and communities' lives. So, anyways, I'll get to that a little bit later. One of the other uh, call outs that we got in some emails and text message. Thanks for people who reached out and on LinkedIn. Was you've made our definition easy. I really liked that. I really appreciated that. Sincerely. You know, emergency management is strategic coordination of emergency services, right? Emergency services protects life, property, and continuity of operation. It covers all the ESFs, creates a foundation, and then you can get all the certs in the world to specialize from there, and allows you to be a generalist, which kind of gets into my next topic. A good friend of mine, Sarah from St. Louis, uh, we've become great friends because of the things that they are doing in St. Louis, as well as taking the training in the counterterrorism training that we did. And they lamented on the state of EM a little bit on LinkedIn. And I wrote, it's because of lack of branding, a lack of field recognition, and a lack of standards across the field. And uh, one of the most funny moments for me was somebody replied to me, countering me, and said, "What are you talking about? Of course, your standards across the EM." And then named like 15 organizations, all that had different standards, not even standards, requirements for working within their group. One of which is um, a social networking group that uses terms like certified, even though they're not really certified. And they're the free stuff that you can get from EMI turned into paid test. The exact same questions, by the way, that you've already gotten the search from EMI, the ICS court search. You take them again for this group. You have to pay, and now you're a member of the group. You're certified. You say you've been doing it for 7 years. And it's like, good gosh. So if we have 15 different groups that you can name that all have different requirements for working in that group, guess what? That is a requirement, not an industry wide standard. And I can't beat that one enough. I have, oh my gosh, about a year and a half ago, with a great friend, wrote a book. Well, we wrote an outline for a book. We had a concept for a book. We thought about a book. No, we actually did write the outline for the entire book's 14 chapters of what emergency management should be. And really, the idea was that you can use it like a playbook. So you can read it cover to cover, like takes care of everything for EM, or you can flip to a section and say, okay, like if I'm going to be professional in this one aspect. And that was as close as I got to thinking about standards. I still might produce the book, to be honest. At this point, um, I think it might be needed because, again, more and more people are kind of coming into our train of thinking. But at the same time, the scary stuff that's been happening with the field, or at least the stuff that people are either losing their jobs over or have uncertainty about the future on, and protecting communities, the whole deal, all that's up in the air right now. And I think it's probably a great time as a field. Now, I'm not talking about public safety emergency management. I'm not talking about emergency managers at a hospital. I'm not talking about emergency managers at a school. I'm not talking about the emergency managers who are better embedded into local and global nonprofits, or those that the military units have been reaching out for, like us. I'm talking about all of the above. If I go in as an emergency manager, as a generalist for any of those different groups, there should be a baseline understanding of what I can do. And again, working within those different groups and the different aspects of the disaster life cycle, you can specialize where you're good at. Some people are really great at responding, getting out there, helping out, coordinating when, you're doing 14, 16, 18 hours a day and it's go, 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 go. And other people hate that and they're not good at it, but they're really good at looking at the long-term plan of mitigating disasters in community. There's so many different aspects of where you can specialize. So we're not trying to take any of that away. We're trying to say, if I'm in the field of emergency management, in one sentence, can I say what emergency management does? And can I in one sentence, can I explain the mission? And in one sentence, can I describe my job? Right? Those are three different things: definition of the field, your mission, and what you do for your specialization for your job. Right? Emergency management is strategic coordination of emergency services, i.e., right? Someone's going to respond to that and be like, oh, okay, you're basically the problem solver for the group. Yep. Strategic coordination. I work with everybody. Cool. That one makes sense to me if I work in any type of public safety. The next one is the mission. Save and sustain life, right? Save and sustain life. That's bingo. That's what we want to do. That's why we got in the field of emergency management, right? Strategically, right? And the third one is whatever your specialization is, right? I want to mitigate disasters by fixing all these unreinforced masonry buildings in my community. I want to fix these bridges. I want to get out in the community and teach people about where the resources are for them if they are impacted by natural disaster, whatever it may be. A sentence for each. Okay, so get off that high horse for a bit. Okay, I want to talk about a couple of phrases or analogies, rather, that I've been using for a minute now, and kind of share them with the field. The the reality is on a lot of these posts, and honestly, some of the questionnaires that we've gotten from a lot of people who reached out. Now, we've done hiring many times, and typically when we do hiring, after we get like the first 80 resumes, we usually turn off the notification on that. So you're looking at maybe, I don't know, a couple thousands of resumes that we've looked at just as a company over time. And then, when I was with FEMA, all the local hires, so you're talking about several thousand resumes there. And then, probably looked at 10,000 resumes over the course of, a couple decades. And between the resumes and the posts and people's title on LinkedIn that they share, I want to share these two analogies with you, and I'm hoping it helps you out. The first one is kind of the sad one ish, and the second one is maybe an aha. And honestly, the second one I just kind of came up with on the spot yesterday, and the more I thought about it, I was like, actually, that's pretty legit. So here's the original one. If you spend 30 years building a boat, but it can't float. Oh, I don't like saying that. I actually tried to change it for this podcast. I'm going to just do the original one because I don't like all the rhyming. If you spend 30 years building a plane, but it can't fly, what's the point of saying you spent 30 years building a plane? There's a lot of people who call themselves expert because of time. Now, experience, taking the quote from Marvel, experience is experience. I would like to note that Loki died right after he said that, so maybe that didn't help very much. But experience does have its place. But experience alone doesn't qualify you as being an expert. It doesn't guarantee that you're wise. It doesn't guarantee that your experience covers many different areas. And so I would just implore people that if you're going to call yourself an expert, I better have seen you do several keynote speeches, at least on your resume. You have done keynote speeches. You're the type of person the White House is going to call, or a general from a military unit, or somebody at National Lab. Somebody, you're somebody of influence. Pete Gaynor, subject matter expert, right? Like, he had a career as a Marine. He led stuff in his state. Then he was the state director for Rhode Island. Then he was deputy at FEMA. He led FEMA, and now he's at Hill International. And, great mentor. And I bring him up all the time because he's a great example of that. Steve Johnson, the same way. Steve, it leads counter sea burn for the British Army. He teaches at Cranfield University. He taught at Georgetown, where I met him. He's a police officer in London. He does all kinds of stuff, and he does keynote speeches all over the world, and he's one of the best, right? He's actively doing the job, which allows him to stay at the forefront of his field, and he has all the experience and accolades and success, is very important, that allow you to be a subject matter expert, right? You can be incredibly knowledgeable. You can be academically an expert, but if you call yourself a subject matter expert and I'm hiring you, you better be able to back it up. So just something to think about. It might come off more arrogant than helpful in understanding who you are. And if we want to work with you, if you're calling yourself things that you can't really back up in your resume. And that kind of goes into FEMA as well, right? If you spend 30 years building a plane and it can't fly, what's the point? Back in 2007 or 8, maybe it was 2009, I had issues with FEMA, and there's great people in FEMA, and there's great things and missions in FEMA, but it did feel like it was really piecemealed, and it didn't feel very cohesive, right? And there felt like a lot of extra and, more importantly, fluff. I was very frustrated in dealing with FEMA as an outsider, thinking, like, are you actually helping, or are you saying that you help, right? And are you just patting on yourself on the back because you've gotten into your frame of reference of what you think your job is, and you can't think outside the box, and therefore you have an issue? And so that was 2009. By the time I joined I'm at West, I saw it internally. It was a little bit of confirmation bias, and I was trying to break myself out of it. But I saw people get pigeonholed despite previous jobs. It was definitely knowledge is power, and so there wasn't great information sharing within the organization. And again, there felt like a lot of fluff, and like, we're saying this so that we have public perception that we're the good guys, but really, like, you're still wasting time and space. And so you fast forward to whether you like him or not, a change agent who appears to not to really care about the individual person, and say, let's rip this apart and see what happens. I wish they didn't have that opportunity, legitimately. And that's, again, goes back to trying to find people jobs. Even if there was fluff there, like, why can't we repurpose people rather than just get rid of people? I mean, that's messed up. And I don't want anybody to lose their job. And that uncertainty is scary and frustrating. And I don't want any part of that. But as an organization, I think FEMA has an opportunity, and which comes to my next point on here is my call out to NIM Kid, Kevin Guthrie, and Bob Fenton. NIM, let's see, I met NIM through Pete in Texas, and I've heard him speak. Phenomenal speaker. He talked about how he always identified himself as a firefighter, despite being more years in emergency management. And he started to question, like, why that was. And I loved that speech, because people who are firefighters have a lot of pride in that, and they can explain to the community what it is. And quite frankly, no one wrote a song called F the Fireman, right? And so, like, and then him having that realization of, like, he wants to have that kind of pride in emergency management. That's why I was like, oh, I like him. I like somebody who can see the tactical and why the tactical is cool, and see the strategic and see why the strategic, I want to say, is cool. It could be cool if you follow the Readiness Lab, what we're doing. But, like, strategic and tactical Like it's the same world. And I was really excited when I saw that he was on the short list originally for FEMA. Kevin Guthrie and I met in Florida. He opened for me. For I actually have a really funny story about that. When I was in the keynote for the Florida Hazmat Symposium. All right, I'm gonna tell that story real quick, even though it's like off the cuff. And if you're commenting right now, oops. Hopefully nobody is. Because I could just, you know, we don't have to worry about that. But I met Kevin outside. His car pulls up. And I was like, "Hey, Kevin, right?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm, Director Guthrie." And I was like, "Cool." Um, and we have a mutual friend, the director of the Florida Hazmat Symposium, and says, "Hey, I'm friends with Jonathan Lamb, Chief Lamb. He's awesome. He's actually been on the podcast." And he was like, "Cool." And he like kind of like blew me off. Like, the guy was busy. I get it. Like state director, he's in Florida. He's about to get on stage. And I'm just like this random guy sitting outside of a hotel, and he's just like, which was really funny that like he like didn't even turn around. He was like, "I'm out." I was like, "All right." And then he got up on stage for like 5 or 10 minutes. He welcomed everybody to Florida. It was a pretty good introduction. And then I got up to do the keynote, and I looked over on his eyes. He was like one of those like. It was pretty funny. But then he took a bunch of notes, and I heard that he went to like a state meeting right after that, and was like, "Hey, we got to do some stuff." And I heard it was based off of some of the comments that were shared during the keynote, which is pretty cool, and I hope it helps somebody out. But he's former law enforcement, I believe, and turned emergency management. He's all in emergency management, and so you have those two perspectives, traditional first responder, the tactical stuff, turned the strategic side, and both state directors of very active states. And then you have Bob Fenton. And I've only met Bob a couple of times. I actually asked him to be on this podcast. I need to have Nim on here too. Oh my gosh. But the I met him in the 2017 wildfires. I think it was Napa County wildfires. That's what it was. Yeah, Coffee Park. And I was on IMAT West. My entire team was in Texas. I came home for like a week break or something, and because we were all taking turns. And the wildfire started like literally the day I got home. And so my boss said, "Hey, you're going to Cal OES." So I went to Cal OES. So much for that vacation. And for 4 days, somebody, so like you had Bob, and then you had a section chief, and then you had a section chief's deputy, and then me, because I was kind of off to the side. And they kept on going to me saying, "Bob wants this." And I would say, "Okay," I'd make it, send it back to him. This was like 4 days, by the way. And kept on getting back to me saying, "That's not what I want. That's not what I want." I got so sick of it that I went right up to him and I said, "Hey, I'm the guy who keeps trying to make that product for you. What do you actually want to know?" And he walked me through it, in 2 or 3 minutes. And I said, "Okay, I think I figured out what you wanted." And what I made was nothing what he described, but everything what he was asking for. And I came up to him like literally 15 minutes later and said, "This is what you want." And he grabs it and he goes, "Yes, that's exactly what I wanted." I was like, "Sweet." Which to his credit, he knew what he wanted, and you're playing the phone tag all the way down. And then I also came from a different team, and so I had to do a little bit of translation there. But him leading FEMA a couple times, as the interim, also in California, FEMA Region 9, incredibly active. And so you have these three individuals, and we're not even going to get into the politics of like red and blue, but very different states, very different cultures, very different operational tempos. Cal OES, Tatum, and Florida's, Flidum, whatever you want to call it. Those are very different EOCs and very different approaches, especially with Texas being integrated with the university, which is weird. But that being said, um, you have an opportunity where people have. Oh, and Bob, I think, was in the NFL or something. So like totally random, but you have people that have different careers and different perspectives going into emergency management, finding success in emergency management from very different cultures and perspectives. I think that is a wonderful opportunity. If you can save FEMA, you better save FEMA. You can't lose FEMA. Oh my gosh, how dumb would that be to lose FEMA? But at the same time, please, if this gets back to them, I hope it gets back to them. Please, please, please start acting like the way the entire freaking world wants you to act and thinks you act. They think you're first responders. They hear emergency management, therefore, they think you're managing the emergency, right? We need to have the same level of standards, expectations, and protocols that tacticians have, but do it for the strategic. When we wear vests and 511 pants in an office setting with computers and big screens, we look stupid. We look absolutely ridiculous to other people who have true standards in their jobs. And if you come from those backgrounds, then you know that. You know that perception and you know that mockery that happens. If we want to be taken more seriously as a field, I'm going to be very bold here and just literally go to the Readiness Lab that has like brand standards and expectations and styles and approaches. At least look the part, right? We don't need to be wearing, tactical pants and vests in an EOC. At the same time, wearing a suit and tie and acting like a politician for most of us is also kind of ridiculous, right? And there's a time and place for everything, but it's an opportunity to say, hey, we are the strategic level of a tactical response. We are first responders. FEMA, FEMA inherently is an auditing agency. You have two groups, 90%, which does auditing, and 10% that does emergency services support. The USAR teams, the IMATs, the deployable teams, the FITs, all that stuff, that's fantastic. That's emergency management. That is getting out there and helping out and deploying and doing the job of emergency management. 10%. 90% is the auditing thing. You got, I mean, it's money, right? I mean, you have to pour money into a system to revitalize critical infrastructure. So you need the funds and you need to protect communities against that stuff, right? And so both are important, but both are very different. And I think there's waste, and I think there's an opportunity to say, hey, like, what do we actually want to do here? I will say, Bob, if Bob gets his way, and Bob, if you're listening right now, you owe me some Chick-fil-A. The guy loves Chick-fil-A, and I bought him it once, so you owe me. But if Bob gets his way, that portion of FEMA that is really emergency management is going to deploy all the time. And if you deploy all the time, you need to hire people who can deploy all the time. I'm a dad with 3 young kids. I don't want to deploy all the time. I'm kind of over that right now. Now, if I don't have kids, great. Or if my family situation where my wife wanted to kick me out of the house for 6 months a year, and go deploy, okay, like every family situation is different. But if people got hired to do a different job where they didn't think they were going to deploy, guess what? You're going to have a lot of resentful people. And so figure out, please, how to repurpose people into helpful positions, whether it's what I would call the IRS of disasters or, emergency services coordination and support. I really hope there's some wins there. And if you're going to fix the mitigation problem, make all mitigation projects come before disasters rather than what happens most of the time where people apply for mitigation grants after the disaster. That is wild. Anyways, very passionate about lots of different things. Again, reaching out to the community. I kind of gave you some of the answers. If you filled out that form, you're going to call from us. They're going to ask you about your philosophy in emergency management. Hopefully, listen to the show. Again, thank you to everybody who has been supporting what we're doing at the Readiness Lab. Standards and EM, we got to figure that out as an entire group and not specialized clubs and requirements for different groups. Remember, oh, I never got into it. I never did the second half of the analogy, the new one. So I'll do it now because I'll leave you with this, and I think it's kind of the positive. Going back to my plane and boat thought, if you spend 30 years building a boat and it can fly, don't get angry. I have been surprised the amount of wins people get for themselves. And they're like, oh, but that's not what I wanted. It's like, well, you wanted to win, right? I care most about winning. There's an episode from The West Wing. It's like season 1 where this woman, she is working for somebody outside the White House, and the guy that she's working for, the senator, makes a deal with the White House, and they lose the bill. And she goes, "Oh no, they're gonna gloat so much that we didn't get this." And the guy's like, "No, they're professionals at the White House." And then cuts to a cutscene, and they're all like jumping up and down. And one guy, Josh, he's like, "We won, you lost." Anyways, I'm that guy. I want to win. I want to win for a field. I want to win for emergency management. And if you spend 30 years building a boat and it can fly, that means you just got there faster potentially. So let's figure out the wins and capture the wins. Having an opportunity to fix FEMA or at least improve FEMA, anytime you can improve something that somebody's forcing you to improve, is a great opportunity to just do it. You don't have to deal with the pushback of the 10 years of cultural change that typically happens. So take that opportunity, right? If you are finding opportunities where it maybe wasn't what you planned on, but it's actually helping you out, please don't be that person that fights against yourself. Try to find your wins, and I promise that if you do so, like, your life will get better. One, you'll be happier, but two, finding wins, man, that will help you and everybody else around you. You don't want to deal with people who are confused about emergency management anymore. You don't want to deal with the shifting priorities and why you sometimes are not taken very seriously, right? It's an opportunity right now in our field to be taken seriously. So again, don't be mad if your boat can fly. And with that, this was a fun exercise, totally off the cuff. I really need to get guests back on here. Nobody wants to listen to me for 40 minutes or whatever this is. But thanks, guys. And, as always, please like and subscribe. Please send me your DMs, your emails, the messages, all the stuff that I typically get. And good luck. And we'll see you for the next one. Peace. Wait for it. There it goes.